Hello, and welcome to a quick video about the quote sandwich, a concept that I use with middle school writers who are writing argument, sometimes also informational writing, but mostly argument. When I taught high school, when I teach high school, I use a 5-step quotation process. In the middle school, I've taken it down to 3 steps. You can see it looks a bit like a sandwich there. So if you're a high school teacher or a high school student, you may think, wait a minute, this feels too simple. Yes, this is geared more towards middle school students, although the principle still holds. Let's take a look here at what I mean by quote sandwich. So the metaphor I give is, imagine you go to a restaurant and it's a burger place. I really love hamburgers. And you order a burger and the waiter comes out with the burger on a spatula and says, hold out your hands. And so you stick them out and he just sets a hamburger patty on your hands. You'd be like, what is this? Like, this is not, I can't take this in. This is not in a format that I can handle. Yes. Same thing happens when you just fire a quote at your audience. I see this in all different types of writing and journalism. If I give you a quote and it's just a quote, I'm done. Then I walk away as if I've done my job. You haven't. So let's talk about the quote sandwich here. The quote sandwich is a way not to leave your quote naked. It's a way to package your quote for easy consumption, right? We have those 2 pieces of bread around the meat so that our hands don't get greasy and sticky and, it's not running down. They help us to ingest the quote or the meat, okay? So here's a little poster I've made. We start with the context. That's the lead in. Then we give the quote. And then we have the explanation, the argument, the reasoning, whatever you're calling that. It's where you explain why you've chosen this quote, what it proves to you, or what direction it moves your argument in. So first, let's talk about context, the top bun. Let's break it down. The context is so that the reader understands where that quote came from. Like, especially if you're talking about a whole book, there's so many events. To just say a random quote, you might not remember where that quote came from. You're not going to memorize the whole book. So we need to tell the reader the when. In what part of the book? Was it the beginning, the middle, the end? Was it during a specific event, a key event in the book that everyone would recognize? Again, you assume that your reader or the audience of this essay has read the book. They just need a reminder about where this quote comes from. Then you need to say the who was there in this, where this quote was happening, this scene. Who was there? Who's talking? And what are they doing? Who's there? When? Who's there? What are they doing? So let me give you an example. Early in the book, Jonas learns that his father has secretly found out Gabriel's name, something that is technically against the rules. So early in the book is when. Jonas and his father are the who. And what's going on? His father has secretly found out Gabriel's name, something that's against the rules. Does that make sense? As soon as I tell you that, you can remember, oh, that's right. Yeah, the dad came home and said, I know his name. So then we give our quote. This should be a review. We've already talked about that. It's in MLA style. If it's someone thinking or talking, you can lead into the quote with a Jonas thinks or his father says or whatever. This is required in high school. With middle school students, I don't stress this as much. They have a lot to think about with the context, the MLA style, and the reasoning. So this is great if you're able to do it. It's not essential for a middle school essay in my classroom. But I did want to point out, sorry, let me go back really quick. This needs to move. MLA style quote, we have quotation marks at the beginning and end of the words that were taken from the text. A parenthetical that has the author's last name and the page number. Notice there's no comma. There is no PG or P period or page. Just author's name, the number, the numerical page, parentheses, and the period, because we want to tell our reader that we are done with the quote at the end of that parenthetical. Now, finally, the bottom bun. I wish they were opposite because the top bun is not that long. It should only be 1 sentence. The bottom bun could be 2 or 3 sentences. And just from the graphic of this, it looks like maybe this one's bigger. Sorry, that's just because hamburgers have a top that's more pronounced. I should rotate it upside down. So the bottom bun's on the bottom. Okay, top bun's on the bottom. So here we have, after my context, I've given my quote. What now? Why did you choose this quote? What does this quote prove? What point does this make? How does this quote show your theme, your thesis statement, whatever you're trying to prove? You may feel like, duh, it's so obvious, it's right there in the quote. If only we all just read each other's minds, life would be so much nicer. But we don't. We need to see your thinking. You need to make your reasoning, your thinking visible. And we do that in the explanation or argument. So, for example, let's say my theme statement is following rules can be good, but some rules need to be broken because they are unethical. And I'm going to use that quote I used earlier where Jonas says, oh my goodness, my dad broke the rules. That shows that he has not yet learned the theme. But early in the book, Jonas always follows the rules and doesn't question authority. Even the idea that anyone, his father, for instance, might break a rule is shocking to him. He is still very naive and obedient. Yeah. So I'm explaining how he has not yet learned the lesson. I could probably make that clear. Every time I do this slide, I could be like, maybe I need a better quote. But the point is, I'm explaining why did I include this quote? Jonas thinks it didn't seem a terribly important rule, but the fact that his father had broken a rule at all awed him. So this is my first quote where I'm showing that the character has not learned the lesson. And so that's what I'm explaining here. He's very naive. He's very obedient. He follows every rule. Okay. So if you're like, I don't know how to start this explanation, argument, reasoning part, here are some ways to start. You could say this scene shows how. In this quote, the reader can see that Lowry's choice to have Jonas so surprised, this moment is significant because, or Jonas is learning that. This one's hard right now because he's not learning the theme yet. He's not learning the theme, but when my later quotes, that would work well. So these are some starters when students are sometimes stuck. I say, just pick one of these and run with it. So altogether, this is how a quote sandwich would look. Context, quote, reasoning, explanation, argument. I know it says early in the book and early in the book. In my editing, in my proofreading, I need to fix that one. I need to fix that. But this is how it looks all together. With my 7th graders, the requirement is not that this be 2 to 3 sentences, which it is for older students. But for 7th graders, I say this sentence, this can be one sentence. So we have 1, 1, 1. That is sufficient. But if you want to elaborate more and you have more to say, please feel free to expand it. 1 is the minimum. You have to explain your argument from this quote a little bit. Yeah? Okay. You might want to pause here. What if you're like, I don't know how to start my context? Well, here we go. Here are some starters. I don't know how to start my explanation. Here we go. There's some examples. Pause here if you need to. So I often follow this up. If you want to keep going, if this is enough for you, stop. But if you want to try this out before you get working on your own essay, here's a theme statement, for example. Following rules can be good, but some rules need to be broken because they are unethical. So here's my quote. But I want them, Jonas said angrily. It isn't fair that nothing has color. So what I do here is I pause and I have students work independently or in groups, depending on the vibe of the class, to write a context for this and write the analysis, the argument, the explanation underneath. So I'm going to have you take a pause here and take a second to say what you think you would write in those two, and then I will reveal mine. Okay, let me reveal what I have compared to what you have. It doesn't mean yours is wrong, but see if you've accomplished the same goals I have. Later, after Jonas receives memories of color and begins to see color, he argues with the giver about whether the rule banning color was the right choice. I've said color way too much. Okay, so I'm going to fix that in revisions. Not perfect. And maybe I should say later. So I've given you the when, that after Jonas receives memory of color and begins to see color, he argues with the giver about whether the rule banning color was the right choice. Jonas says, it's helpful to make it clear who's talking before I give the quote. But I want them, Jonas said angrily. It isn't fair that nothing has color. Lowry 122, period. This moment is significant because Jonas is starting to challenge and question, that should be and, question, a rule. He says the rule isn't fair, which means he is starting to recognize that some rules can be unethical or wrong. He's beginning to realize that some rules should be broken. Do you notice what I've done here? I've gone to my theme statement and I've stolen some for keywords. Not stolen. I'm echoing my keywords. So I've said need to be broken. Rules should be broken. I said unethical, right? I'm echoing to keep that in your mind, to persuade you. I'm repeating and echoing the words of my theme statement. It's a persuasion technique. So take a look at your context, an argument or a reasoning analysis. Did your context say when in the book? Who was there? Gabriel and Jonas. And what was happening? Argument about color. Your explanation, argument, reasoning. Does it start with some kind of sentence starter that makes it clear what this shows? Something like this moment is significant because, or this shows. Did you link it back to your theme statement? Did you use any keywords? Notice I did another move here. Please steal this. He says the rule isn't fair. I'm actually quoting my quote. It isn't fair. I'm pointing out specific language in the quote that supports my theme statement because unethical means unfair, right? Doesn't follow right and wrong. All right, see if that's helpful. Good luck writing your quote sandwiches. Again, this one isn't perfect. I'm going to go through and do a few revisions now, but I've got the essence of my burger here.